Folks, welcome back. Today we're going to try to answer the question of, is Pokemon still investable in 2025 with the current price points of Scarlet Violet era? And what it looks like the current price points of booster boxes are going to be in Scarlet Violet and beyond, even after this whole boom cycle ends. Because I think a lot of us are starting to come to grips with the fact we may never see boxes at $100 or less again. Some people still feel we will. I personally don't think we will for the most part. But if you had to pay $120, $130 a box, MSRP, $161 a box, is Pokemon sealed product really still investable? Or were a lot of the opportunities eaten up because when you could buy them at $80, $90, $100 a box, and that by the time they got back to MSRP, you were already up 30, 40% on your money? Was that really the golden years of Pokemon investing? So we're going to dive into it a little bit. And we're also going to talk about the performance of Scarlet Violet era so far, especially the early sets compared to the early sets of other generations. So I think it's doing extremely well. And the time frames seem to be sped up at which the price growth happens. And this tells me that maybe because we're all paying more for the boxes in the beginning, they may just grow to higher price points faster in the end. And it may just kind of wipe itself clean, and it may be all relative, right? So again, these are all speculations, guys. I don't know any special information. I'm just giving you my takes. Some of you agree, some of you don't. That's what this whole channel is about. Let me know in the comments. All right, so I recently did a Patreon video this month for my Patreons, and I broke everything down in a spreadsheet. And what I showed was the Sword and Shield era. Okay, again, it's only 2 to 4 years old. All right, remember that. If you were to change every price point you paid for any of your Sword and Shield era boxes and change it to the MSRP in Sword and Shield, which was like $144 or so, you'd still be doing extremely well. You wouldn't be doing as well, but you would still be outperforming the, traditional market indexes and mutual funds and things like that, which tells me the opportunities are still there. Even at full MSRP, the opportunities are still there. Also, when you go back to Sun and Moon and XY era, those, if you change the price points you bought at to MSRP, it's still not even close. Those you have ran off into space. You would still be doing, better than most any traditional investment out there, unless you take into account some of the high flying stocks we've seen or some of the high flying cryptos. Other than sort of the high flyers and the outliers, Pokemon has still outperformed pretty much everything. And so when I look at all that data and I look at Scarlet Violet era, I'm thinking, okay, so even at MSRP, these other eras are doing just fine, especially when they age past that 4-year time frame. And, Sun and Moon's like 5 to 7 years old. XY is like 8 to 10 years old. And so Sword and Shield, a lot of the sets are only like 2 years old, 3 years old. So once those age another 2 to 3 years, it's likely going to play more in a factor that MSRP is going to be not that big of a deal if you were to buy at that. And your gains are still going to be very much above what you could have done elsewhere. And so seeing all that data, it tells me Scarlet Violet era, I still have a lot of confidence in it. I still think that if boxes do, drop after this boom and things are widely available, and even if you can only buy them at $120 a box, I still think it's a great pickup. Even if some of the high flyer sets are full MSRP at $161, I still think they can be a good pickup. Because when you look at the high flyer sets from other eras, they grow enormously fast. When you look at, Evolving Skies, when you look at Fusion Strike, Chilling Reign, Lost Origin, it didn't matter if you bought those sets at MSRP, you're still up double your money or more. 2, 3x your money. Evolving Skies can't even calculate it, it's so high. But being up 2, 3x in a matter of 2 to 3 years is ridiculous when it comes to any form of investing. We just get spoiled here in Pokemon, and we just take, $300 boxes for granted after 2 to 3 years. It's insane. And so if you think the same trend is going to happen with Scarlet and Violet in the high flyer boxes, like your Paldea Evolves, like your Surging Sparks, maybe some of these boxes that are going to be released in the late era, if you believe the same pattern is going to continue to take place, well then, if they're going to be $300, $400 a box and you bought it at MSRP, you're still up 100% of your money in the same 2, 3, 4-year time frame. And so if you're expecting to be up 100% of your money in the same time frame, where else are you going to make 100% in 2, 3, 4 years other than, throwing in a high-flying crypto or a high-flying stock like NVIDIA or something? Other than kind of getting lucky in a single pick, you're not going to find this with any of the indexes or any mutual funds and things. And so that tells me it's still extremely lucrative in Pokemon. Now, once you start getting up into $200 plus a box, that's where it starts to get a little dicey. I think you can still do well, but it definitely does reduce your chances of seeing as high of gains as we did before. But On the other end of that, if we get to more of a normalized market and boxes do drop down to those 120s, 130s, 140s, maybe even 110, right? Then it gets extremely attractive again. And the fact that Scarlet Violet era right now is outperforming what other eras did in the same time frame. Guys, where is it? Where is it? Obsidian Flames, okay? Darkness Ablaze. They're almost the same value. I think Obsidian Flames may be almost passing Darkness Ablaze. Guys, these were released years apart. What is it, like what is Obsidian Flames? 4 years? 3 to 4 years prior to Obsidian Flames. Obsidian Flames is already the same price as Darkness Ablaze. What does that tell you? If you go look at Burning Shadows wasn't $200 a box in the same time frame as Obsidian Flames. And so the fact that Scarlet Violet era is outproducing the gains we saw in previous eras quicker tells me that, well, paying more for Scarlet Violet era boxes is starting to seem less dangerous because they're growing faster. And this is what I'm talking about, all the price points being relative. It's like, okay, if you start out higher in an era, let's say you start out an entire era paying $130 a box, right? Let's say the next era, the lowest we ever see is $130 a box. Well, maybe everything is just relative and they grow faster and people are willing to pay a little more for them. And, they dry up faster and then they reach that $200-$300 level faster than what we saw in Sword and Shield. The same way we saw Sword and Shield reach that level faster than what we saw in Sun and Moon, and so on and so forth. And so the hobby's always changing. The price points are always changing. The growth cycles are always phasing. The growth rate is always changing. And so just comparing price points to different times in the hobby, I don't think is the right way to go about it. I think we're thinking about it wrong. I think there's a lot of other factors that play into this. And now, one of the downside risks to this, you could say is, well, Alex, everything can just be overinflated right now because there's a lack of supply and we're in a big boom. And so it's entirely possible once all this supply hits the market and once the boom kind of subsides that all these boxes may just go stagnant, or maybe they fall for a number of years and then the gains don't look as good in the same 2 to 4 year time frame the Sword and Shield did. And again, I get it. That's a risk. That's definitely a variable in this investing thing. And no one really knows. I don't know. All I'm saying is there's not a single era in Pokemon where if you bought at MSRP, you're not outperforming other investments you could put your money in. Also, what I'm saying is the fact that Scarlet Violet era is already performing better in a lot of ways than Sword and Shield tells me that, well, if it's performing better already, then I'm more willing to pay a little higher prices on the boxes because the returns are still going to be similar, right? And then the last thing is the consumers as a whole do seem to be, again, unhappy because some of the new sets like Prismatic, like Surging Sparks, like this Journey Together, because they're unavailable and they're expensive. But overall, it does seem like consumers are willing to pay a little more. I've even, heard players say in interviews that they would be fine. Things were a little more expensive, 110, 120, 130 a box. People are okay with paying MSRP for ETBs now, whatever that is, $50, $60. And so I think people are kind of getting used to the fact of not, wanting an ETB at $35 anymore, or not wanting a booster box at $90 anymore. And so even if that kind of a consumer, not consumer confidence, but that the willingness to pay a little more goes up a little bit, I think that's going to help everything out going forward. Even if we're a little too high right now, I think we were a little too low. So I think when we find that middle ground, I do think investing in this hobby is going to be as successful as ever, in my opinion. That's me, Alex, shilling Pokemon because I invest in Pokemon. It's no surprise, guys. I want this stuff to go up in value. I mean, I can't be any more clear about it. But if prices do drop in the future and everything is 120, 130 a box, I'll be buying. I will be buying at those prices. So that's where I am with it. And yes, I still believe in it just as much as I did other eras. And I think the gains will be very similar. Who knows? Maybe they'll be better going forward because of all this craziness. And so that's my take today, guys. Let me know in the comments what everyone thinks. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Be back in a new one soon. I'm out.